Hear me out. Just a couple nights ago, I had the opportunity to see Harry Styles live. And when Sushi came on, yes, we're just gonna call it Sushi. When Sushi came on, I leapt to my feet just like everyone else in the arena. And why is that? Because it's a good song. However, after enough listening to it and familiarizing myself with it, I arrived at the conclusion that while it is a good song, I subjectively feel that it's perhaps an underwhelmingly good song. So let's give it a listen and talk about why. Hang tight. Hey everyone, my name is Francis and welcome to Music Kingdom, a community created by a music lover for music lovers, where we react to, review, and discuss music from various genres and decades together. So join me, join the kingdom, subscribe to the channel if you feel so inclined, and if you end up liking the video, like the video. If you are watching this video right now, that must mean it was not blocked. However, I do use copyrighted material in my videos, although in my defense, I would just call it fair use. But because of that, record labels and or YouTube are going to take all the ad revenue for themselves. So if you'd like to support myself, support the channel, I have created a Patreon, still in its infancy, and I'll have links to things I love and use in the description below. Okay, let's talk Music for a Sushi Restaurant by Harry Styles. If we rewind time just a few months, I was watching the NBA playoffs and an Apple ad came on advertising their new Spatial audio. I guess it worked. And the song they chose for it started to play, and I remember thinking, what is this? Turns out it was Music for a Sushi Restaurant by Harry Styles, and I even remember thinking, Harry Styles? And I thought that because at the time, my knowledge on Harry Styles wasn't very developed. I had a limited understanding of him pretty much post One Direction, and ever since I have educated myself on his catalog of work, ultimately familiarizing myself with his songs, with his albums, and yes, with Music for a Sushi Restaurant, which I would, as mentioned, eventually come to terms with the fact that while I think it is a good song, I feel it is an underwhelmingly good song. Now, before listening to the song, let's talk a little bit about it, at least for those of you who might be new to it. Music for a Sushi Restaurant is the opening track on the album titled Harry's House, which at the time of the recording of this video is his latest album, his third solo album, in fact, post One Direction. Now, because this is a song review and not an album review, I don't want to get too much into my thoughts on Harry's House as a whole, but for what it's worth, I did enjoy the album. Personally, I felt a little bit mixed about it, and absolutely I do respect the album. However, I don't think it's anything, subjectively speaking, that is mind-blowingly amazing. However, in spite of that, the press, the media are very high on Harry Styles right now. This is currently his time, his fame absolutely is peaking, at least for now. It could get higher, it could get lower, but right now his fame is absolutely peaking, so much so that Rolling Stone recently called him the new king of pop. Harry himself is not to blame, he's just like the 20th person that they've tried to give the title to since Michael died. Now, regarding Music for a Sushi Restaurant, the story goes that Harry Styles was at a sushi restaurant and a song from his prior album came on the radio, and he thought to himself, this is a strange song for a sushi restaurant. And then he created the idea for either a future project, whether it be an album or a song, to have the name Music for a Sushi Restaurant, and here we are. Now, according to Harry Styles, he chose it as the first track on the album with the intention of really setting the tone for the rest of the album. Sushi is written by Harry Styles, Tyler Johnson, Thomas Hull, and Mitch Rowland. In addition to that, it's produced by Kid Harpoon and Tyler Johnson as well. So 4 writers and 2 producers. Now, subjectively speaking, this is just my opinion and my preference. I usually prefer artists to either write it themselves, produce it themselves, or maybe they'll have a partner of some kind or something like that. In the case of Harry Styles, I don't take it away from him. I don't subtract points for that, simply because that is pretty normal within the industry, whether you like it or not. But regardless, the more you know. Another quick thing I'll add is how much I just love the name Music for a Sushi Restaurant. I know I just recalled the story of how he came up with it in the sushi restaurant, but for those of you who do listen to music from past decades, I can't help but wonder if it maybe is a little hat nod or homage to Billy Joel, the wonderful songwriter and composer, in his song Scenes from an Italian Restaurant. Coincidence? I don't know. Maybe it's just homage, but I think that's really cool, and it kind of is a bit nostalgic for that era of Billy Joel. Now, with all that out of the way, let's finally have a listen to Music for a Sushi Restaurant by Harry Styles, also known as Sushi, on this channel. Oh, and be sure to stick around till after the song for the expert's take and the song score.
cook an egg on you.
Love the bass line.
Late night game time, coffee on the stove. You're sweet
Well produced.
ice cream, but you could use a flake or two. Blue bubble gum twist around your tongue. I don't want you to get lost. I don't want you to go.
I like the subtle lowered harmony.
I want you.
Just 'cause I love you, babe, in every kind of way. Just a little taste. You know I love you, babe.
I'm a sucker for horns. That bass lick is disgusting.
Green tea, music for a sushi restaurant. All rice, all rice. Scooba-dooba-doo-ba-doo.
No, I love you, babe.
If the stars were edible.
Just 'cause I love you, babe.
I love a good build up to the final chorus.
Just a little taste. You know I love you, babe.
And there it is. Let's unpack that, shall we? Initial thoughts. That catchy horn lick that is in every chorus, the chorus that gives the song its oomph, the chorus that brings you in for more, the chorus that makes you want to replay the song over and over, ever so inviting, sounds a bit familiar. Let's find out why.
Don't believe me, just watch. Don't believe me, just watch.
And if you know your music history is taken from... I am about to get hit with like 3 different copyright claims. But there you have it. If you also thought, similar to me, that that does really sound familiar, that's why. Now, I'm not in any way, shape, or form accusing Harry Styles of plagiarism or even appropriating, because I do believe there is a fine line between paying homage to something or taking inspiration from something and totally ripping something off. Music for a Sushi Restaurant by Harry Styles is its own unique composition. It is not ripping off Uptown Funk. It is not ripping off Jam by Michael Jackson. However, what makes the chorus so catchy? Well, it's very, very similar to Uptown Funk and Jam. And for me, even though I do acknowledge everything I just said, I would kind of take off at least some points for originality and inspiration, which we'll get to in the song score. But before I can score the song, let's hear what the expert has to say.
Welcome to the Experts Corner. This is Music for a Sushi Restaurant. Now this is a fun one. I kind of consider this to be Harry Styles' Uptown Funk, like the fun party song with a catchy horn line. Not to say he's ripping it off though. Despite the horn lines being similar, this one does maintain its originality in terms of composition and overall sound. It's in the time signature of 4/4, otherwise known as common time, and it's in the key of F sharp major. That's F sharp major. Now I'm a sucker for what songs like this one do, which is kind of keep it low, keep it kind of the same for a while, lull you in, and then deliver on the moment to party, which is what this one does very well. Like in the verses, it just kind of stays here. The bass line in the verses goes and just kind of repeats that for a while. So the chords for this song, first chord is F sharp major with a dominant 7. then goes down a step to E major with a dominant 7. Then goes down to E flat major with a dominant 7. Then goes down to a D major with no dominant 7. So throughout this chorus, you're really just taking 3 steps down, which is really cool. It's unique. I haven't heard anything quite like this anywhere else. Overall, this is a fun one, and I give it a 7 out of 10. The production is tight, I love Harry's vocal wailing, and the horn line is wonderful. The reason the score isn't higher is because I kind of see this one as more of a fun product and less of a work of art, which is what I would reserve 8s, 9s, and 10s for. However, I still love the song. I think it's great, and that's just my personal opinion. So, thank you for joining me in the Expert's Corner. Back to you, Francis.
A big thank you to our expert and his score. I swear to God, he's like our Bill Nye, but the music guy. So he gave it a 7 out of 10. And keep in mind, his score is one of the 6 categories that I use to average out the overall song score. So let's get started with its composition. So, let's be honest about what the song is and is not. What the song is not is a huge work of art, is an abstract piece, is a song that's going to be 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 15 minutes of different time signatures and chord progressions. Now, what it is, in my opinion, and I say this with respect, is a radio hit, is a 340 single, is mainstream. And that's not an insult, because some of the greatest musical minds in the history of the music industry have given us those mainstream radio hits, those 340 singles. In spite of it being the type of song that it is, I still find the composition to be relatively fresh, and its overall direction, if you will, to be better than a lot of its peers, those chart toppers that are usually otherwise not. So for its composition, I give it a 6 out of 10. And before you come for me, for reference, for perspective, most radio hit songs that are at least out today, I would give their composition a 1 or a 2, maybe a 3. So for what it is, I find a 6 out of 10 generous. Now, production. There's a lot to say and there's not a lot to say. So I'll try to keep it brief. I love the touch of the horns, I love the bass lick, I love the added harmonics. It is the type of production that would warrant Apple Music wanting to advertise Spatial Audio for. It's very fresh, it's very tight. I give credit to Kid Harpoon and Johnson for making something that, in my opinion, is going to age pretty well. But is it one of the greatest productions I've ever heard in any song ever? No. So production gets a 7.5. Lyrics. Okay. So let's just be honest, it took 4 people to write green eyes, fried rice, I could cook an egg on you, late night game time, coffee on the stove, yeah, your sweet ice cream, but you could use a flake or 2, etc., etc. So, okay, in defense of Harry, he's not trying to flex his ability to write lyrics. He's not trying to flex and say, I'm a poet, listen to music for a sushi restaurant. I acknowledge that, okay, so I'm not going to be so hard on him as to think that this is all he's capable of or that this is the best he can do as a writer. Of course not, but we have to call it what it is. It's not the most amazingly written song by any stretch of the imagination. It's just nothing to write home about, so the lyrics get a 5 out of 10. Now, if you're unhappy with that, keep in mind, mumble rap, for example, would get a 0, a 1, or a 2. Songs like Alone Again Naturally by Gilbert O'Sullivan. Songs like They Long to Be Close to You by Burt Bacharach. Stranger in Moscow, Michael Jackson. Play Me, Neil Diamond. Those are going to be 8s, 9s, and 10s. A 5 is pretty generous and, in my opinion, accurate. Vocals. Points for getting creative with it. I like his little scatting. I find that fun, fresh, original. I like that Harry is evolving in terms of just kind of getting away from the One Direction thing, trying to become his own man, and not being afraid to experiment and do a little Scooby-Doo-Doo-Bop, the harmonies, the nice falsetto, etc., etc. But is it something that is remarkably vocally impressive? No. I'm going to give the vocals a 6 out of 10, giving him maybe a bonus point or 2 for at least getting kind of fun with it, experimenting with it, so on and so forth. Our last category of inspiration and or originality is a bit of a head scratcher because most songs of its kind, most radio hits, most 340 singles, at least in today's age, are not going to be original, they're not going to be inspired. However, I would like to give credit where credit's due because how many of them are about Music for a Sushi Restaurant. I like that the lyrics are playful as opposed to being super generic. I like that the producers actually gave a shit as opposed to some random trap beat you'll hear if you turn on the radio right now. I like that the overall composition wasn't incredibly lazy given the standard of popular music right now. And I like how he wasn't afraid to experiment a little bit with his vocals. So originality and or inspiration, in my subjective opinion, gets a 7, which I feel personally for what it is respectable. Average it all out: composition, production, lyrics, vocals, originality, inspiration, and the expert score. Music for a Sushi Restaurant by Harry Styles from Harry's house gets a 6.4 out of 10, which demonstrates my point. Is this a good song? Yes. However, in some ways, I do feel it is perhaps an underwhelmingly good song. If you agree or disagree, let me know in the comments below. If you're an avid music lover like myself, join the kingdom and subscribe if you haven't already. If you liked the video, like the video, support the channel if you feel so inclined, and I'll look forward to jamming with you in the next one.